Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Illinois Arts Council Agency, and by the supportive viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald, just north of Quincy on a farm where there are a number of outbuildings. The one right behind me here is one where a master tractor restorer works, and the one next to it is a 1930s ag museum. Now, some of the tractors that are restored here end up in the museum. Let's take a look at that process a little bit. Marvin Hubert, as you know, there are a lot of tractor collectors.
Many.
Some of them have dozens and dozens of tractors. A lot of those tractors are not in great condition because tractors sit out in the field, they get old and rusty, and then somebody has to restore them if they're going to be brought back to life. And that's what you do, isn't it?
Yes. I grew up on a small farm here in Adams County. We had 2-cylinder tractors. I had a love for them. I went to Spoon River Junior College, studied how to work on tractors, and one of the first ones was a 2-cylinder John Deere. Worked for a John Deere dealer for 27 years.
Is that right?
Applied my skills there, both to the 2-cylinders and the newer tractors.
Yeah.
Retired from there and went to work full-time with my wife for the next 30 years, and then we sold our business 2 years ago and retired, and now I just
And now you're back to the tractors again.
And enjoying
some
them.
retirement.
Yes.
But this thing is a gem. Now tell me, you just finished, this is the most recent one you finished,
Just
right?
About 6 weeks ago
It's
finished.
gorgeous. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a 1940 Model A John Deere. Bought it off of a friend that offered it to me. It was in bad condition. Did a total disassemble of it, every last nut and bolt out of it.
No kidding.
And then we reassembled it and brought it back to life.
What do you do when you can't find exactly what you need? For instance, you're taking every nut and bolt out of it and you find out that some of the parts are faulty. What do you do?
Well, you can either get them repaired, remachined, you get new parts through John Deere if they're not available there, maybe a good used part, or there are a lot of really good reproduction parts. Some of them you got to be a little leery of. Others you have people that sell them have a good reputation for quality parts, and so I try to stick with those people.
Well, if you've been in it long enough, you know who those people are too, don't you? That have a good reputation.
Right.
Let's take a look around this because it just gleams the way. Now, okay, everybody remembers John Deere as the green tractor,
Right.
but it wasn't always that way, was it?
Well, the John Deere tractors primarily were green. The early Waterloo Boy had a lot of red on it, plus the green and yellow. But the tractors themselves primarily were green and yellow.
Gosh, it's beautiful. Now, did you do the paint job on this?
My neighbor helped me with it. He's got a heated paint booth, and I would have painted it if my paint booth's not heated. So
That's right, and it was winter time,
I
right?
was lucky that he's only about 1.5 miles up the road from me, so we took it to him. And
Show us, did you have some challenges on this? Show us where you really had to use your imagination and use your resourcefulness to get this done.
Well, one of the key things, and I'll just step here, there's this clutch here, there's a spline driver on it, and that spline was beat off there. It was bad shape, you couldn't use it. So a friend of mine, I was talking to him one night, and he said he'd had a good used one that he'd sell me, and he did, at a reasonable price. And so that was kind of the key to getting the thing back together. The other parts were just parts that needed to be replaced.
This is interesting. Now, do you always name your tractors?
I don't, but my wife Kathy does.
Well, it's a good way to determine, okay, which tractor are we talking about? So let's call this one Foster, for instance, okay? There's a reason why you picked Foster.
Foster is what we named it. I bought it from a friend of the family who had foster children in his home. When he asked me about buying it, the price that he quoted me seemed a little bit more than I wanted to pay, but I thought it was a good Christian thing to do, go on and buy it from him so that he could put food on the table for his foster children.
Foster children, okay, all right.
When I needed this key part here, the crankshaft, a good friend of mine, Gary Foster, had this crankshaft. So when I got the tractor running, Kathy asked me, what are you going to name it? And I said, well, I bought it to help the guy feed his foster children. Gary Foster helped me get the crankshaft, and I fostered it back to life, so we'll call it Foster.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Now, I want to go next door, too, because we
Okay.
don't see many of these.
Yeah.
Tractors there were a bunch of tractors, and a lot of them have been restored. But this is a corn planter.
Corn planter,
And we
yes.
talked about the red and the green colors. Now, the corn planters, a Deere corn planter, would have been red, wouldn't it?
In this time period, yes. This was number 9. It was built between 1901 and 1916, but this particular Model 1 was 1901 to 1906, and I verified that by some casting numbers that were on it, and they made some changes.
Okay, and you can show us, can't you, with
Yes.
this Deere bucket here, or this
Right.
corn bucket.
What I did was I looked up this casting number in my old catalog that I had, and it verified,
That
That
was
it
pretty
was.
exciting for you, too,
It was,
wasn't it?
yes, because I had looked for one of these to put into our museum, 1930s Ag Museum, and they're not plentiful, Mark.
You're right. Now, when did you finish this one? It's done. You painted it. This is in the condition you want it, right?
Right. I finished it last September, but I'm waiting for a gentleman from Morton, Illinois is coming, and he's going to hand paint the pinstriping around the boxes, the hoppers.
And that's the way it would have been,
yes,
huh?
pinstriped on all the flat work here.
And that's a specialty. Pinstriper is a specialty.
Oh
huh?
yeah,
Okay.
that's getting to be a lost art to be able to do that.
Hey,
so.
would you show us how this would work? Now, you have
Sure.
these stakes that you would put to the side, and you
Right.
also have this arm that comes down.
So you have 2 check wire stakes. You go put one at one end of the field, one at the other end of the field. You roll this roll of check wire out that has these buttons on it, and every 42 inches. So this is stretched across the field. As that wire passes through here with those buttons, it trips this mechanism and it drops the seed.
Oh, so it'll only plant it every 42
Well,
inches.
every 42 inches, another button drops
Okay.
the seed. Purpose of that, Mark, was back then they didn't have herbicides. So to weed control, they would cultivate the corn this way, and then turn around, they could
Oh, you
cultivate
had to
the
get
corn
room to
this
get
way.
through the field, to
Yeah.
get through the plants.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the purpose of it. And it was successful. It worked.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Now,
Yeah.
now, how would this arm help you with
Well-
this disc on the top?
Put this back here. This marker would come down like this, make the mark in the field as planter's going forward. So when that driver, that team turned at the other end, he could line his team up with that mark, and get a straight row through the field. And then he got the other end, he'd alternate it to the other side.
Switch it to the other side.
Yes,
Okay.
but again, you had to move your wires.
Yeah, to get them out of the way. Sure.
It was a process.
And
probably-
plus you're driving horses.
Right.
You know, which is not everybody can do.
Maybe if he was lucky, he had 2 or 3 young men he was raising to go with
You
him
would
to
sure
the
hope
field.
so. I also
Yeah.
find this fascinating. And were these added on later, or was this tool and oil
Right.
kit
No,
included?
That was it. It didn't come with the planter. We had this and some of our parts that we had left over from a previous purchase.
You know, and speaking of how valuable it is to save things, the wooden, like that arm that you just raised and lowered, and some of these wooden pieces, you couldn't. They weren't with this.
No,
you had to find those.
Right, and basically when the planter came to us was this part here. Didn't have the roll of check wire, didn't have the planter check wire stakes, didn't have the tongue or this marker, didn't have the
Well, almost all the wood was gone then, right?
right.
Yeah.
Didn't have the double tree or the evener up front there. None of that was with it. So as we got to talking one day, my father-in-law and I, he said, you know, I think I know where there's a marker over in one of the barns over here. So he goes and gets it. And I said, well, I think we've got a couple rolls of check wire. So I go over and look and found check wire
Oh, man.
stakes and wire and look up the part number in my catalog. on the castings, and they were the right ones.
That is so lucky.
And then my wife said, well, I think we've got a Doubletree and a Evener. But the key thing was this tongue. There's a
the long,
certain width.
That's the real long one that
Right.
goes all the way up to the
All the
team,
way.
right? Yeah.
Right. Well, horse on each side of it, pulling it. The width here plus this thickness had to be a dimension. And I thought, well, I could find something I could modify it to work in there. So we had bought a bunch of tongues at an auction and went to the barn to look, and we pulled this one out because it measured right, and right on the side of it said number 9. So it was made for this. It just
Now
fit
I
right
know.
in.
Now I know why farmers never throw anything away.
That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. The wrenches in the toolbox, I had those. They were in my collection.
Just took a
in the
little
oil
painting,
can.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is sweet.
Yeah. So, and once we get this pinstriping done, we'll move this into our museum. We have an evolution of corn planters in there, and we'll show you that later.
Good, good. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And you also have a couple of more tractors in there, don't
Yes,
you?
we
So
do.
we'll see those too later. Okay, thanks. Well, Marvin, you'd probably always like to work on your own tractors, but sometimes you have to do a favor for somebody, right? They've got an old John Deere and they want it restored, and I guess you say, well, I guess I got time for that.
Right.
huh?
Yeah. Plus, it gives me a little extra money that I can spend to
On
restore
your own
my
parts,
own.
right?
Right.
There you go. Yeah. So
if
what do
I
you have to
wanna-
do to this one? This is
Well,
somebody else's
yeah,
tractor.
This one, and we could look at it later, but the grill screens were beat up in it, and so the guy wanted new grill screens and the medallion to go in the front part of the hood.
Can
So-
I go get those? Or you
Sure.
just stay right here.
Yeah.
I'll bring them over
Yeah.
because I want to show them. And the grill screens you couldn't really find original ones, could you?
No, these were reproduction grill screens that we were able to acquire. I'll take this out of the wrapper. So you can
These
see
will
it
go
on-
in the front, right?
Right, they go in like this on this 730. They wrap around. So
Well, that would be kind of a trick getting those in
it
there, I
is.
would think.
Yeah, you gotta.
Because you could bend in those and make them fit would be kind of a
Right,
trick.
and they're a little stiff. This medallion will go in the center of the hood. You can see it on this one. But they're expensive. It's a reproduction. The guy that makes them is licensed by John Deere to reproduce them.
Yeah.
And
So they're identical.
yes,
They're just not
right,
old. They're,
right.
Yeah.
$100.
Everything's expensive because
yeah.
it's a specialty item and
Right.
there's only so few
Right.
people that make them.
But if you want to get it where it's
Yeah.
authentic or looking
Will
authentic,
this one get painted and all that, or will he be doing that on his own?
he'll be
after you
doing
get
that
it?
on his
Yeah.
own. He's having me repair some oil leaks on it so that future he can go on.
Yeah.
There's axle seals are leaking on the rear here. I'm going to have to pull the wheels off and the back end
Well,
off.
you know, speaking of pulling wheels off, let's take a look at some of these
Yeah.
specialty things that you have to do. Because you work by yourself largely here, right? So pulling a 1,000-pound wheel off is not anything you
Right.
can just want to do by yourself.
Yeah,
How do you
I've
do it?
got a floor hoist here that I use to lift the heavy items with.
That'll also raise an engine up for
Yes,
you, won't it?
it sure would. Yeah, it sure will.
Yeah, it raised up the whole front of the tractor if you wanted it to, I assume.
And it depends upon the weight of them. Yeah, yeah.
And what about these? Did
Okay,
you
these
build
are, yeah, I built these and they're adjustable. I can adjust them up and down to fit different tractors. If I want to, I take this wheel off and I want to support that axle, I can put it under there and it's a safety device.
Yeah, and then you can pull it out, but then you still need your hoist to lift that thing up after you get it,
Right.
get it.
To take the wheel off, I
Yeah.
use the hoist.
Yeah.
And then once I get that wheel off there, then I get that safety stand under there right away and support it.
Yeah, and you know this is also.
Yeah, that's one that
You
I
built
made.
that too, huh?
Right. Made that.
What would you use that for?
Well, that to separate a tractor, certain model tractor, it turns upside down. The wheel can roll, so you can separate it. I've got another one back here leaning against this tractor that it saddles up under the
Oh, I
tractor
see.
and
Yeah.
supports it. If you wanted to separate that tractor in the middle.
Well, let's take a look at this tractor. Because
Okay.
this is yours, right?
Yes.
Okay, and are you going to restore this one?
Eventually, someday. This was the very first year that John Deere, where they call it the new generation of tractors. They went away from the 2 cylinders to a multi-cylinder engine. 4 cylinder is what this one is.
Yeah.
They made them in gasoline, diesel, LP, And this.
And what year are we talking about?
This is in 1961. It was the very first year, and the reason I know that, other than the serial number, the brake pedals are the later ones. They put a device to lock them together, so that if you're going down the road and you had to hit the brakes quick, if you hit just one brake here, it'll just swing the tractor around at, at a higher speed.
Not good. Yeah.
When they were locked together, when you were transporting down the road at road speed, you hit one pedal and it'll lock both of them. So.
And then there's another one over here that you're working on as well. Now this one says diesel. I guess they're still making. Are they still making diesels?
Oh yeah. That's all they make now is diesel.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have since about 1974 or 76.
Yeah. What's the year on this one?
This is a 1959 730 diesel. It's going to take quite a bit of engine repair work, but
it sure is.
This is my next project.
It's like the engine's plumb gone out of that.
It's gone out of it. Yeah. Pieces are laying down underneath of it here. So it's.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you're an optimist, Marvin. You hope to live long enough to get all this done. I mean,
yeah. I always said I was going to live to be 100, so I know now why.
This is one of the ways that you're able to do what you do. You were talking about a general catalog that you look for parts in, this is I know this is an antique, so I'm going to handle it very carefully. But not only are your tractors old, but your books are very old too. And anything that you would, for certain years, anything that you would need is in here, right?
Yes. And I've got other catalogs marked that I keep in a dresser drawer over here.
Yeah,
I refer.
That goes for this one too, general catalog. This one looks even older, actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just fascinating. Just looking through here is fascinating to see how everything was so advanced technically, even back then.
It sure was.
And of course they were producing everything, mass producing everything.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Gentleman from Wichita, Kansas sent that carburetor to me. I rebuild a lot of carburetors for people. This is off of actually like that 3010 over there, but I do a lot of the 2-cylinder tractor carburetor rebuilds, and I keep parts here. This cabinet is full of just parts, and if I come here in the evening working on one, I can just get the parts out and then replenish them later.
The whole place is full of parts. I don't know how you remember where everything is.
Well,
I mean, just look right down here.
Yeah.
And you say never throw anything away.
Don't throw
there
it
might
away.
be something in there that you need.
Yeah.
You probably
or
know
somebody
where it
else
is.
does. Yeah. So, but anyway, I'll get this rebuilt and shipped back out to him. So, and these are just a couple of that I've redone.
These are
This is off of a 2-cylinder. Yeah, that's a 2-cylinder. That would be like a carburetor like that A that we looked at earlier, and the magneto. And I rebuild those also here, keep parts for them. So.
Well, listen, you also have a couple of tractors you finished over in the museum, and we want to talk about this museum a little bit. It's the next building over, your father-in-law's ag museum, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll meet him and we'll look at your tractors over there.
Okay.
And we'll learn a little more.
You bet.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, Marvin, we mentioned the Ag Museum, so we're going to take a brief look at it here while we're looking at your other tractors. This is your father-in-law's museum. You help him with it.
Yes.
We're going to meet him a little bit later on. But we mentioned these two tractors that we wanted to see that you had earlier finished. This one's older than the other one we saw. We saw the Model A, which was a 1940, right?
Right.
This one's a little older.
This is a Model B. It's a 1936. Would have came out of the factory on this skeleton steel. My father-in-law, his oldest brother, was farming, and he worked for his brother cultivating corn with a tractor identical to this, a 2-row cultivator. And the reason he could operate it is because it had the hand clutch. And his dad had farmalls, and he couldn't reach the clutch pedal. His legs weren't long enough yet. They're probably only 7 years old.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of good memories of running this Model B, and he told me, he said, I'd like to have one restored just like it.
Yeah,
Said,
and so you did. I don't know if all those memories are good, but now, and you mentioned the cultivator. Now that's these plow-like things that hang down into the field, and that would dig up the ground between the plants, right? That would do the weeding for you, I guess.
Your corn rows would be in here, and these shovels on this cultivator would just root out the weeds and kill them.
Okay, and we mentioned earlier that's why it was important to plant your corn 42 inches apart.
Right.
That left you room to get your tractor in there.
You bet.
And look at these wheels. I mean, we're used to seeing tires now.
Yeah, and when the tires came along, the guys wanted to put tires on, so they would cut these off and then just weld a rim on and mount tires.
Yeah.
Well, the tractor he ran it had steel wheels like this.
Yeah.
So we were looking for steel wheels. He'd called over the United States and Canada trying to run down some wheels to put on here and couldn't find them. And finally one day a guy came to me and looked at a tractor I had on my shelf and said, "Oh, I've got a model like that." And I said, "Really? A real one?" He said, "Well, I do," but he said, "I took the wheels off of it." And I said, "What are you going to do with them?" He said, "I'll sell them." I said, "Where do you live?" And it's only 3 miles down the road from us.
He went all over the world looking for them.
Yeah.
3 miles away, he had these steel wheels. Perfect. Okay, now this one's even older, and you restored this one too. It's a Huber tractor. I assume that there's no relationship, huh?
No relation, or at least I haven't received any inheritance from the Huber family in Ohio. I've met the direct descendants, nice people. I bought this tractor on an auction in Nyack, Illinois. It was a 1927 model year. It was built in late 1926. The original owner, who I bought it from, had bought it and took delivery of it the day my dad was born in 1927.
Okay.
My dad's name was Marion Huber. This Huber tractor was built in Marion, Ohio.
I'll be doggone.
So it kind of a...
Yeah, and no relation. That's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. Was this a trick? I mean, this is older. It's different than what you're used to. Was it difficult to restore?
It wasn't that difficult. They were pretty crude made, and I did overhaul the engine, tightened up a few of the loose joints. So
you don't see a lot of Hubers, do you?
No, you don't. They only built a little over 13,000 total tractors.
And to compare that, they built 300,000 of these Model Bs.
Just that Model B.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see that wasn't. And the color is striking, but there's a reason for that too.
Right. The drab army green, Huber did a lot of work for the military in World War I, and so they painted a lot of the equipment and stuff the drab army green. And so when the war was over, they said, "Hey, we're not going to throw this paint away," so they just painted their tractors drab olive green until they run out. I think it was in 1928 they finally went back to their color of a dark green. But
Well, Don McKinley, we've spent a lot of time with your son-in-law, and he mentioned a lot about you and the fact that you were driving a tractor like this as a little kid. I like the fact that here we're in your museum, and you wanted a tractor just like the first one that your dad brought home in 1931, right?
You bet.
You're old enough to remember working with horses before there was a tractor.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In the 30s, people say they talk about when the tractors got on a farm, but you got to be careful with that. If tractors were invented in the 20s, even in the late teens. There were tractors available, gas tractors, steam tractors before that. But they were expensive, and they were big, Hart-Par type thing, big old lumbering tractors. The horses needed to be replaced, and the people like John Deere and all the others said, "We got to make a smaller tractor that can replace a team of horses." And so they started coming out with the A's and the B's and so forth. And this is a B, 1936. Not all farmers had tractors until the mid-1940s, after the war. In the 30s, they couldn't afford it. And then the war come along and they weren't available.
Right. Nothing. Everything was rationed. Nothing was available. Yeah.
That's right. So most there were a few out there, but tractors really didn't come to the farm until the 40s. And of course, I like it because it's sitting here, and it shows the guys that are riding around in the GPS operated combines and tractors today. where they don't even have to touch the steering wheel. It hasn't always been that way. It started with stuff like this, and if you didn't have this kind of a tractor,
Right.
It's an evolution. It had to start somewhere, and these are one of the earliest.
Yep. And I mean, you were talking about how much easier it is now to run a combine than a tractor, but think of how much easier it was to do this than a team of horses,
I got,
as you used to do, right?
yeah, this was, we took this tractor as is up to Mount Pleasant to a show, and a father and a son walked by. There were 600 pre-1939 tractors there. Father and his son walked by, and the son looked up at Dad and said, "Yeah, Dad, but what did they use them for?" And Dad looked down at him and said, "They farmed with them." Period. That was it. I came home and told Marvin and the family, I want to surround this tractor with all of the John Deere equipment it could have pulled or powered in the 30s, because I want that kid, and I want to be able to show that kid, this is what this tractor did. It's salvation of it, you know.
I want to thank you for hosting us here today, okay?
Great.
And Marvin, too.
Yes.
And we
Well,
will
thank you for coming.
Absolutely, and we will be back because we have not been to the 1930s Ag Museum of Don and Marv for many, many years. They've made a lot of changes here. They're totally devoted to the education of agriculture from the 1930s, and we're going to be back with another program. With another Illinois story near Quincy, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Illinois Arts Council Agency, and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.